Okay, so The Wheel of Time, episode one. What are your overall thoughts on it?
I thought it was like an amazing opening in general. Words can't describe. Could tell like the dynamic of like, oh, women have a powers and authority in this world, where usually in the opposite, it would be the women being chased down for like witchcraft and stuff like that. But it was like a great like reverse roll up. Everything was like, oh shoot, what's gonna happen next? Which was really interesting. Which goes great with the narration at the beginning.
Okay, and you said you haven't read the book, so you don't really know the context for how this world came to be this way yet?
No, I have not.
Okay, so we'll talk about that later. Right now, I want to talk about the show, just as the show, and how well it communicates what it wants to.
Okay.
So, my overall thoughts on it, I have seen the whole series already, the whole season, and I have mixed feelings about it, but I'm going to try to stick to talking about just episode one. And also, I have read the book, but I'm going to talk about the show as the show. And then later at the end, we can make some comparisons to the books.
Okay.
So, my overall thoughts for episode one, yeah, it seemed like a really good setup, showing this nice town that our main characters are from, launching into this Trolloc attack that implodes their world, and then the urgency of them having to leave. I did have some issues with the pacing at first, though. Like, we were getting introduced to all of the characters, but then 20 minutes in, I was waiting for something to happen. And then things did start happening. And then close to the end, we got to them leaving the town, and that part felt a bit rushed to me. There was the attack. This is the first time they're talking to Moraine, and she says, "You four have to come with me." And then they just go. And it kind of feels like it needed a bit more space, a bit more breathing room at the end.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with you with that. Okay, so the entire time when they're in the village, I felt like the pacing on that part was really good. It just felt like the end was rushed. They could have just kept it to the end. They could have just like finished at the battle seat at the end. To
Making it
me,
a cliffhanger at the end of the battle and then showing the
yes,
aftermath
y-
of the battle as the start of episode two.
yes, because I felt like the episode one was a good beginning.
Okay,
I'm
let's
gonna
go
just
through the characters one
yeah,
at a time.
yeah.
First of all, let's talk about a couple of things in the opening scene. Let's try to go a little bit in order. In the opening scene, I wonder if you noticed as they are pulling away from Maureen and Lan, going into that wide shot of the environment, did you notice that some of those mountains and pillars, those were skyscrapers?
Yes, that was cool. Like okay, so basically, there used to be a city there before it became destroyed. If you watch like one of the shorts in like the original stories on Amazon Prime, where I watched mine, it was just like it told me about the lore about how the city got destroyed a long time ago after the Great
Not just
Fall.
a city,
Like
not just a city, the world.
yeah,
The
the entire
world was destroyed. I want to tell you the history of this world now, but that's not in the show
yeah,
yet. Book. So let's save that to the book discussion at the
yeah.
end. Let's go through the show. So, another aesthetic thing that I love, since we were just talking about scenery for a second, when we go into the Two Rivers village, Emmons Field, all of the women wear braids. That is a tradition for them. They come of age and they get to braid their hair, and all of the overage women wear that braid. But each woman wears it slightly differently. You see different styles with that same hairstyle, and I just really like that choice for how
That
they did
is
it.
yes, I
It
honestly
does
that is
capture
really
all
pretty.
of the distinct personality in their hair, while also keeping a tradition of this particular place.
Yeah, that is true because um like honest I felt like there was more meaning to it. So like they were doing like a coming age for the girl and then she had her braid. I was like, "Oh, there got to be more to the story because again, um there were other girls that had their hair braided, but some of them had like I think I saw one with ribbons on it, and then some of them had something different, or they just made multiple braids in different styles and stuff like that. It's like, do they have some type of repetition, or do they have something? Does it
Um,
correspond to their personalities and something like that? Or
well, that's part of what I'm saying. The tradition for the villages within the Two Rivers is that all overage women wear their hair in that one long braid. But I like that what the show did, it showed individual people just having it styled slightly differently. And that is up to the individual. And I just like how they made it look.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a bit of a talk for hairstyles. Going on to the show, to the characters, we are introduced to Egwene first. What do you think of her?
I felt she was I admired her. Like in the first episode you could see how she was about like it was her coming of age. Is she was about to jump into like she got pushed into there. I was like, oh my gosh, I was scared. Like my heart jumped that second when she got pushed into the river, and I was just like,
I
oh,
laughed.
I, you laughed. I was like, oh my god, what just happened? And then see where like you could see her having being able to listen to the wind and the powers when she was trying to figure out the water, like trying to like trying to like calm herself and like try to not be calm herself into the water, or at like the same time not be afraid, but kind of like rationalize what is happening, because obviously this is a tradition, and it feels like she felt like you could see that she heard and felt something, and then she's also trying to keep it to herself. And I felt like she was very like you could see her as a strong character, but she also has her own issues, and like um and also with her connection with the other characters, which we could talk about right after. But
Hmm.
I felt like
That
yeah.
that river ceremony isn't in the book, but I think it ties into the concept of how the female half of the magic is used. For them, later on in the books, it's described as having to surrender to the flow of the magic in order to control and direct it. So it's kind of metaphorical for that, I think, is what they were conveying.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about like I guess one of the another character that another character and his like one his wife didn't come up to the ceremony. I'm thinking whether or not she could have lost her daughter in that trial, because again they pushed her off a cliff and she was flowing down the river. I was like, she could have died and suffocated. She could have hit her head
No, she
like
wouldn't. Perrin's wife, no, she wouldn't have had a child because they're about 20 and you go through that ceremony when you're around 20, when the woman's circle says you're old enough. So, no, she wouldn't have had a child.
okay, that's good to know. Like, but I was kind of like wondering what kind of happened.
I think it was hinting that she has a bit of a problem with Egwene. And
Oh,
for reasons later on in the series, but we'll talk about that when we get to it.
okay.
Do you want to go to Perrin since we brought him up?
Yeah.
I love Perrin's character in the book. I don't feel like we get as much of him. Well, not in this first episode as we do in the book, but not early in the book either. So I guess that tracks.
I pretty
But
much
tell
I
me
pretty
your
much
unfiltered thoughts, because
I
I'm sorry, my mind is going to jump to book comparisons, and I'm trying to keep it show
Oh
only.
no,
But
you're
you go ahead.
fine. You're fine. You're fine. I honestly loved his character. Like in generally, I felt his pain when he accidentally s- when he accidentally
Well, yeah, that actor pulled that off so hard. I had a tear.
yeah, I felt emotional. I was like, "Oh no." I cried. I felt sad, and he was such
And
like
you could see how the situation could come about, the franticness of this battle, and then just swinging when you think something's coming up behind you.
yeah.
Oh my God, it hurt.
It hurted so much, and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then throughout the entire episode, no, at the end, again, they should have like cut that off and put it on episode 2.
Yeah, they
But
should
like
have shown that he just accidentally killed his wife and does not get a moment to grieve. They don't get to bury the bodies. They needed more room to breathe in that first
they
episode.
did,
But
and
the
you could
urgency of them having to leave, I get that. But if you're going to put in, he did not have a wife in the book, so that wasn't an issue there. So if you're going to put this in, you kind of have to deal with it.
yes, I agree, because like I felt like in episode 2, you could see there are moments they try to give him like some scenes moments where he is trying to like
Process his grief.
process his grief, but I didn't feel like it was enough because they're trying to do all the characters' point of view, and I feel like again they could have stretched it out a little bit longer where they cut off.
I'm going to
Yeah.
preface some of our discussion here by saying I saw that the showrunners for this show wanted to make it 10 episodes instead of 8. And you can see where having to compress the time shows in not being able to develop certain things.
That is
Like
true.
Perrin. I feel bad for Perrin. I feel bad that his character is kind of shortchanged at the end of the season, but again, we'll talk about that as we go.
Okay. But yeah, overall, I felt like he was just like a gentle giant. I honestly, I am rooting for him. I only seen the first two episodes so far, so I'm
Mhm.
ready to play catch up and watch it. I wanted to watch everything at once, but like again, I want to pace myself and kind of process everything. But
And have our
I'm
discussions.
yeah, I honestly I'm rooting for him. I'm also trying. I also felt again first two episodes. I feel like they, as a newcomer to the Wheel of Time, I have heard of the Wheel of Time multiple times, and I had like, I honestly have it on my TBR. It's just that making time to like, if I start for me starting a series, if I start with book one, I'm gonna go like take time to like go through at least have at least two books a month if it's just like that how big it is, and I want to kind of like digest the information slowly, and it's just starting a series from scratch is always daunting for me, but
Okay, I recently started the books because for two reasons. One, I saw a bunch of new YouTube videos coming up once the show started coming out, and then I
that's
got
true.
curious. I Googled. I probably shouldn't have because you can't Google anything about this series without spoilers. But for me, reading spoilers is what gets me hooked into a story, knowing that this interesting thing is going to happen at some point, and I want to see how it gets there. And where the characters start to where I see they go in certain points in the series going on, I thought, wow, I need to know how this happens. I got the first book and I also started it because I've been in a reading slump. And I thought, with this kind of book, you have to read fast. You can't put it down for a few weeks or else you will miss details and forget things. So I would have to pick it up and then power through to break out of my reading slump. And when I finished reading book one, I loved it. And then I thought, my goodness, there's 14 of these.
So yes, so for that, I'm like that's what I'm scared of. I actually started another book that is like it's similar to this series, like a good fantasy series to start. It's just that I need to like not not plan for it, but m- like I always read the book first before the show, and I don't, and I want to try to do it differently this time. Like watch the show, and then go back and read the entire series of it because it's just like it's humongous, and I'm just like in awe of it because I've seen again YouTube videos of it, and I've seen. I wouldn't say spoilers, but pretty much other people's perspective of it, and I was just like, I want to be able to watch it and like feel like they so far I'm following the pace of the story and I like it. I just felt like it was just too rushed in certain areas. So like the first two episodes, I felt like there are scenes that they rushed through or they cut out some scenes because of time, and they could have like expanded on certain areas because again, episode one having the whole village life and then everything turned into chaos. Perfect scenes. That was part A and part B. They could have ended right there, and then you could have seen the devastation of all the characters coming together as one. In episode two,
But
they will start off like that would be a good cliffhanger. In episode two, they could have just like started off where
showing the aftermath,
yeah,
showing
after
the
yeah,
characters processing the different things, and then the army descending. So the processing is cut short. We're still going to have to deal with that later, but we've at least have a little of it. But then the urgency of them having to leave. And this was one of the questions I was going to save for later, but I might as well go to it now. What, how, what do you think of Maureen getting them to leave? Why did they listen to her?
I honestly felt like that kind of path that wasn't really well done played done like wasn't really played out well because like if a stranger came into my village and then told them, oh, we need to leave, and then she told me this is all your fault and like we have to leave now, I would kind of need a moment to process that information. I wouldn't have gone straight with the stranger right away. in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. I would
Mm-hmm.
have like, I mean, they did a good job of making her try to heal some of the villagers that are left, but they could have just like played that. They could have just played that part in the opening more in episode 2, where she goes in like
Yes.
give them a day, like an entire day to
Half
like
the day. Then the morning.
yeah, like give them the day, like give them time to actually process what happened. Their village was destroyed overnight, and then you give them like less than 5 minutes, like, oh, you need to leave now. It's like, huh?
Yeah, that
Uh,
is the external element of, again, just the time constraint of a TV show, where you know that if they'd had like another, if you could put another half hour on the show, they would have done it. But then again, that's also an issue with writing, where when you do have to compress like that, you got to figure out where to space it out.
yeah, the
But
pacing.
we're kind of jumping topics a bit. We didn't finish characters. What?
Yeah.
So let's. Okay, I have characters in one list and then some questions in the other for us to discuss. So let's just finish the characters first. What did you think of Matt? I
Matt.
like Matt. I like
Honestly,
this the
yes.
TV show version of Matt. Him taking care of his baby sisters is the most adorable thing ever that grips your heart.
Honestly, yeah. I honestly like all the male cast. Everyone has some type of mystery and you have to like fall in love with them. But like Matt, him trying like the first off in the first scene I seen him, I see him inside the bar, or I guess you could say the tavern, and he's
It's
trying
an
to
in.
in so you see him inside the inn trying to make some money. It's like, oh, so he's that type of person. But you later on see how he has to deal with his like his family background about his father cheating on the mother. The mother is also not in the correct headspace, and then you see him go home and try to take care of his younger siblings, and then
Trying to just shelter them from the
yeah.
parents when they're not well and just give them comfort. And then he steals so that he can buy lanterns for his sisters so they can be a part of Winter's Night.
And he also has that pride of like he doesn't want like when his friends try to give him money, he's like, no, it's okay, it's like he he still has
That's
that
also
pride.
because he had already stolen the money, but yeah.
True, but also pride, and also so like he doesn't want to be looked down upon, and like he values his family over anything, even despite what his father and mother has done. At the end, you could at the end during the entire battle scene, you see how angry he got because the parents abandoned the children, and then he went back outside to go save the children.
I don't even think they intentionally abandoned them. I think they just blanked out and forgot them.
True. But like
Anyway,
it's
yes,
you
yes, I
see,
get your
but you can
point.
see like you see how important they are, or like how important the siblings were are to them, because you could see the parents don't really take care of them, but he's like the main person that actually cares and presses like cares for siblings that much.
Hmm.
And I also like the scene where like he like I see like he was searching for all the hidden hiding places um his
He
siblings might
knew where the girls would hide, and then he knew exactly where to take them for safety.
yes, yes, which it was amazing scene on his part, and I felt
Oh,
like
that was one of my favorite scenes, him running through this chaos to get to his sisters. It shows what kind of person Matt is. You
yeah,
get that image. So you hope that's going to show whatever else his character goes to, that's they're showing us to me. An opening episode and opening chapters typically show you like what the core traits of a character are, right?
yeah, and I
So
felt
that's what
yeah
I hope to see
again
more of with
yeah, and again they could have cut it off right there. I feel like yeah, those extra 10 minutes at the end of when they decided to leave the village, they could have used it for a little bit more character development on
Okay.
certain characters. But overall, I think
Okay.
they did a good job.
Okay, so let's go to Rand now.
Ah, the village guy. Okay.
The what?
Like he lives in the mountain, the village. Like he wants the village life. So in the episode, you see him coming down from the mountains, and then
Yeah, he and his father live on their farm a little bit further up the mountain.
and he has this dream of marrying. Gwinnett because they're he Egwen because he likes her, and he also told his dream of like one day having a wife and marrying her and stuff like that and having kids and living on that farm. So he wants the simple life. You see how he like you could see how he is how he like loves his father and Gwinnett and also loves the village that he grew up in because you could see him like going to certain areas, high points of the mountains and areas to like breathe and relax because he plays there. He knows all those secret areas. You could also
Hmm.
see how quick he is to like protect his father when he pulled out like when they got attacked at their own homes. His first response is to like protect, try to save his dad as well as he didn't want to leave him.
Yeah, that is Rand. He was at first content where he is, and then when there's danger, he is quick to jump in and try to protect those he cares for. I think they carried his character through pretty well
I did too.
so far. And what about his father, Tam? Were you expecting this farmer to pull out a sword?
No, that's what I wanted to know. Like the his sword had this crest or this mark, and I was like, maybe that will play out later into the series. But like that must mean something because it
Okay,
looks like
I'm a quick spoiler. Are you okay with me telling you a
oh,
couple of
you know
details?
me. I'm happy with any type of spoiler. It doesn't ruin the story for me.
The heron on the blade is the mark of a blade master. And throughout the
Oh.
book, as Rand travels through different places and he has that blade, people are looking at him say, is he a blade master? Is this guy dangerous? Who is he? He's not old enough to have that sword. And it kind of causes some trouble from him and then also gets him out of trouble because he can bluff and say he's a blade master. And it's fun going through the story as they're traveling. Some different situations come up with that. And then all the while, Rand is wondering, how does my father have this sword?
Oh, okay. So,
Because Tam never told him that he had it.
okay,
But one thing about Rand, let me ask you a question about him. Did you notice that he's the only one in his village with red hair?
that is true. I thought it was more or less. Yeah, that is true. I was thinking that maybe that like it might have played a part with the his father becoming a farmer that he settled down into a small town to like hide from something or someone. And the like I guess I wanting to ask since you revealed that his father is a blade master, will it play into the part of him like trying to learn more about becoming a blade master like his father or like learning about his father's past and like what the symbol means?
Um, yeah, he will learn. Okay, another small spoiler from the books. As they are traveling in the books to get where they're going, Lance starts teaching the boys how to use the weapons that they have. So Rand does start learning
Oh.
from Lance how to use that sword properly. And then as the series goes on, he gets more and more training in different things.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, so I guess
We put a big spoiler label over all of these episodes.
yes. I guess
Okay,
this also answered my other questions about like at the end of episode 2, how long would it take for them to reunite again?
let's save that for later
Yeah.
because divergences in book and TV show, we can discuss those as we go.
Okay.
About Rand's red hair, though, that also becomes interesting because nobody in the Two Rivers, that entire area, has red hair, but it makes Rand look very distinctly like another group of people that some people have hostile feelings towards.
Really?
Hmm.
Oh, then it also plays into the whole then that actually opens doors because he wants to have a small live a small life in the village. And they're also like he in the first 2 episodes, I noticed that he is trying super hard. Like he doesn't trust the lady that told them that they had to go. But he
Hmm.
also he wants to actually turn a blind eye to everything that's happening because he just wants a simple life because that's what I see in the first 2 episodes. And you could also see him having, like, not understanding, not even trying to accept what's happening, as well as not trying to learn more about the world around him. He just wants to
Would
l-
you? Would you? In his situation, would you?
no, no, honestly, no. I would be like super cautious. I would be like questioning everything, but at the same time, I would ask questions because,
True.
like, he have every right to not trust the
Hmm.
lady that came into his village, and then all hell broke loose, and then like every the people that he cared about died. He has every
Okay.
reason to be feeling that emotion.
Okay. Since you brought up Moraine, let's
Okay.
talk about her. There are some things that I want to tell you about Rand, but I can't just tell you the whole book or all the details because you're gonna read it yourself at some point, and I want to talk to you about it when you read it. So
Okay.
I am resisting the urge to explain.
All right. So let me say my part on what my thoughts on Moraine. I felt like they didn't give her characters as much justice in the scene, because here she comes into this village searching for some, well, I guess we can go back to the first scene where she watched someone get she watched some of her sisters, like, track down
They
this guy,
hmm
and track down this guy and just pretty much, I guess, killed him, or
they gentled him. Gentling means cutting off a man from the source of the power, and it's kind of it pretty much leaves them almost wanting to die. When that happens to someone, they live for maybe just another year or two, and then they just die from not wanting to live, who kill themselves.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we seen the part where she saws that, and we seen the part where she just watched it happen, and then we learned that she's looking for kids that might turn out to be the dragon. And then once she entered the village, you could see how people are afraid of her, or there's this saying that something bad might happen, or like you can see how people portray, like try to stay away from her and stuff like
How
that.
well do you think it came through how people view Aes Sedai, the magic users, the female magic users?
Um, I could see how people are hostile to them about their powers and their abilities, and I could also, like, they treat them. Some people will treat them like royalty. Other people will treat them as if they, um, like, they don't want to be like make them mad or be in contact with them because something always happens.
Hmm.
And this would go on, like, I'll explain more when we get to the other female character,
Okay.
about like hostility and stuff like that. That makes you have an opinion of a person even though you don't meet them.
Okay,
Never met them.
so let me ask you a few questions about Maureen then. How
Okay.
does she know that the four in Emmons Field are Taveran?
Um.
Do you know what Taveran is?
I feel like okay, so for me, I feel like how there is some type of connection. So, there is some type of connection where you could sense people near you that has power. I think that's how something that kind of like a magic system that comes into play.
It's so funny that you say that because that is how it is in the book. An Aes Sedai can sense someone who has the spark of magic inborn in them. There are some people who are born with it, and then some people who can be taught and have to have it brought out of them. Aes Sedai can sense the people who are born with it. But the show itself contradicts that in a later episode where Moraine says, I didn't know this person could channel when somebody is revealed to be a very powerful channeler. And she should have known that in the show from meeting this person. I'll tell you when we get to that episode. You'll see it.
Oh, really? Okay, so that I pretty much I pretty much got the magic system kind of figured out. All right. So that's pretty much what I thought, because you could see her in episode 1 where she meets another character, and she tries to figure out she could sense that she has ability, but she also feels noticed that she has hostile feelings between and between her because what happened to her adopted sister in the past when she tried to go to the White Tower and get recognized for her power, but she didn't get recognized for the power. So you could tell that they know. So you could tell that there is some type of like link towards the magic system where you could sense someone has powers, but you don't know what type of power that they have. So that's what I felt like that she was doing. So she could sense people, but she couldn't have like I
Well, we
think
already know that that's contradicted. Well, I know it because I've seen a later episode where
yeah,
she can't sense anything. But yeah, I understand you having that theory. Based on what
yeah.
was shown, I understand that theory. Let me ask you something though. In that opening scene, Moraine said there are 4 Taveran in Emmons Field. Do you know what Taveran are?
No.
The
So
show does not explain it. I
oh,
would
okay.
like to explain it.
Okay. So I guess I could wait at the end when we talk about the book because like I feel like oh I was thinking maybe they would
Uh, I,
explain
I
more
kind of
later.
want I kind of want to point it out. I kind of want to point it out because it's kind of a plot hole here.
Okay.
Taveran RP Wheel of Time spins the weave. That's each thread is a life in that weave. So Taveran are people who instead of just getting woven into the pattern, they are people that the pattern gets formed around, like the central points of that weave. And
Okay.
so things that will happen to them, things that are 1 in a million will happen to them or around them, and they will affect the lives around them. So my question here is, how does she know that the foreign Emmonsfield are Taveran? Nothing has happened in their lives yet. They have been living as anonymous village people with nothing significant happening in this village. So
Oh,
how would anyone
okay.
know that they're Taveran yet?
Okay,
They
so
haven't gone anywhere. They haven't done anything. So
that
it
is the
makes
plot
no it
hole.
makes no sense for her to know that they're Taveran yet. She finds
Okay.
in the book she finds out that they're Taveran later when weird things do start happening around them. But
Oh,
so far,
okay.
there's nothing in their lives significant yet to show that they are Taveran.
Oh, I see. That is a big plot hole. And plus, since they should have done something in the beginning, like have like an oracle or something that well, they have a okay, so they have the message of like the dragon is to return. So like
There's
how
a prequel novel that shows how Moraine got that prophecy. And so in the book also they talk about various different prophecies. But yeah, it would have been interesting if like a prologue for the show or the cold open instead of the Red Aja hunting that man, it was like Moraine or someone getting the prophecy from the seer who foretold it. That might have been interesting.
yeah, honestly, I like okay, so that is just a big hole. Like again, I feel like just by watching the 2 episodes, I feel like the show is really good and interesting and I can't wait for more of it. But I do feel like again, I would have thought like I honestly thought they would explain more in the next couple of episodes. But
Well,
like
let's watch the
yeah.
next couple and then I'd like to get your thoughts.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, another thing that is interesting, and this one is not necessarily a plot hole in the show yet, if you're taking the show independently. Nynaeve's hostility towards Aes Sedai because the old wisdom who raised her was turned away by them. In the book, the White Tower does not turn away anyone who comes to learn. If they can be taught, they will be. Whether or not they pass the final test is a different matter, but if you come to learn, they will test your abilities and put you through the learning. They don't turn away someone just because they're poor, and that is because Aes Sedai, their numbers are a lot less than they used to be.
Yes. Oh, and we need to talk about Naisa too as a character because I was
Yeah,
trying to like cover
Nynaeve. Okay, I love book Nynaeve. I like show Nynaeve, but not as much. What are
yeah.
your thoughts?
Nynaeve, I feel like she's a mystery in my opinion. In the like, I believe I assumed that she was dead by the end of episode 1, but it turns out she might make a return. That she's not
She
dead.
felt, when I first watched it, she felt too significant to me to just be dead like that. And we did not see her die. If you don't see her die, she's not dead.
No, no, like I feel like no, I honestly when I looked at it, I was like, that doesn't seem right, but at the same time I didn't see her, so I felt like she would be coming in like later, but I felt like, oh, something had happened. But again, it due to the fact that like they ended it the first episode that way and then they started the second episode that way, it's just like it was easier for me to like say, oh, she's just like a side character that she might return in the future, like chasing because she was supposed to be uh Gwen Egwene's
Egwene.
mentor, Egwene mentor, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I felt
So we
yeah.
will have more discussions around her, I'm sure.
Okay, but like overall in the character, I feel like she was interested because she does have resentment towards M- I'm gonna
Moiraine,
Moraine. I'm gonna keep butchering these names. I am so sorry.
that's fine. It, it, it took me a minute.
Because like because again her sister was rejected for a power and then she died at the end, which is understandable, but she doesn't actually know the entire truth from what you're telling me. And you could also tell that she has
No, what I was telling you was the book version, that the tower wouldn't turn away anyone because their numbers are down. So being rich or poor does not matter.
exactly,
But
but
in the
like
show, but in the show, that has not been established. It's not been established what the rules of the White Tower are, so it's not a plot hole there.
yeah,
It's just a difference, and and I would continue watching to see how the show handles that when we see more of the White Tower, what rules they establish for the show.
going back and thinking, I'm not sure if she sensed any of the abilities in the guys because
I don't think Maureen didn't speak to the boys before they said we have to go. And that's, let me ask you a question there. Convincing the boys that they have to go, and I'm going to bring up the book again because this is significant. In the book, Maureen is able to say the Trollocs were after you children, you four, in the books it's the three of them, because they specifically attacked Rand's farm, Matt's family's house, and the blacksmith's forge where Perrin works. Those places were attacked first, so it's shown that it was targeted, and then the rest of the attack on the village was just cover. In the TV show, how does she prove that the Trollocs were specifically after that group?
she didn't.
No. They did not explain that. They gave no evidence of that. She just says it was you four, not the whole village,
Yeah,
and we got to
now
go.
like
They have
now
no reason to believe her. They have no reason to believe that it was them four.
honestly, now that you explained it to me, I was like, okay, that makes more sense now because you see more of the fight scenes in those particular area because those were when um like you could see the scene in the farm where where his father was killed. You could see the scene where they targeted Egwene and Navane and they were
Nynaeve,
naive, and you could also see where Pierre Perrin lost his wife.
Perrin.
Perrin, yeah,
But
lost his wife. Yeah, fights
it's,
in
it
there.
didn't look specific to me though. The whole village was being attacked at the same time. Other people were being gorged and gouged and eaten. It wasn't like those specific four were targeted first. It was just all in the midst of the chaos.
Yeah, and they zoomed in certain like telling and
Like
going.
it focused us on the characters that we know instead of the background characters, but it wasn't specific or explained after the fact that it was these four. It just looked like an all-out attack.
Yeah.
Okay, we're running low on time. Let's go through a couple more things.
Okay.
So, I have two questions. I want to know how well you think the show conveyed this. One, do you trust Moraine? Do you think we can trust Moraine?
I feel like I don't. I have mixed feelings about Moraine. In my honest opinion, I feel like I seen scenes. Okay, there are scenes. There are scenes that in the first two episodes you could see her helping, but you know she's doing it for her own benefit, and she needs them to be alive. So they did a good job portraying that emotion. I feel like she does, like she is trying to help, but for a greater cause, and like if it, you could see her dying a little bit from overusing her powers. You could also see her coming, like she felt remorse killing that guy, the wagon guy, even though he died because he's the one that threw himself into the water to go to the other side to the sun. You could see her portray the emotions of like regret, but you also see her focusing on the goal of like, I have to complete my mission. This is my goal and everything.
So she's goal oriented and will do anything to achieve it. That's what you're saying?
Pretty much, yes.
And if that anything ends up looking bad, she's still going to do it.
Yes,
But
I
what do you think the end goal is, though? Is her end goal really to help this group, or is she leading them into a trap?
let's see. From what I expect, well, from what I've seen so far, I don't think she is leading to the trap. I think she is just trying to like, she's trying to like, she's part of an organization that tell her, oh, this is the bad guys and we need these people to do this. So she's like, okay, I am going to go find the people that you need to help save the world. So that's pretty much my thoughts on her. She strongly believes that she strongly believes the world is not only black and white, there is gray area. And she is, you could also see the scene where they were trying to figure out, like she took off her ring and pretend to be a royal lady so she wouldn't get
She
killed.
is actually. She's an she was born a noble woman, and so her saying she's from a noble house, yeah, she is.
Yes, so you could tell that she mixed the truth with the lies, where she has to be honest but she doesn't give the full honest truth. And she also
And that is a major theme about the Aes Sedai in the books. It's
really, okay,
infuriating. It is absolutely infuriating, really.
honestly I can't wait for that
Okay,
scene.
so Moraine raises questions.
Yes, because you could see her portray, like she tells the story that people wants to hear, and then she knows how to manipulate the words. And you could also see when she took Egwene to the side and show her powers and abilities. She wants to tell her, hey, like she could know. She knows that Gwen knows that she has abilities and powers, and she knows that she wants to know more about that. And she knows how to like communicate. Like she gave her the necklace to say, hey, here's the necklace. I could show you how to channel your power, and then she
I'm,
teach her
I'm,
how to
I'm
do it.
sorry, that once again brings up that plot hole that I pointed out where she can sense the power in Egwene, but another character that comes up later who is extremely powerful, she sensed nothing. Plot hole, and it bugs me.
That is true. So what
Egwene
makes,
hasn't even channeled yet, but Maureen could sense her.
yeah, that kind of is like before the plot
Okay,
hole told me, before you told me the plot hole, I was in the opinions like, oh, maybe she has a connections to all the kids that might be dragons in some type of way. And we
okay,
still haven't talked about Lang and his part of it.
Lan.
Lan, yes.
Okay, okay, a question there. What do you think of the channeling? That scene where Moraine is channeling and Len is moving around her, fighting off the Trollocs that get close. That was, I think, really well done, showing the synchronicity between them because they are magically bonded. They can feel each other.
That is really interesting. That I honestly felt like that scene was a good scene. I still have questions about the channeling because my opinion, like my thoughts were like, oh, guys can't have the guys who got powers would ultimately lose control because they've been cursed in some type of way, because that's what they said in
I'm
the
going to ask you a question about that after we talk about Lan.
okay. And I felt like he's able to, he has a connections to her, so he's able to, like, Egwene might have a part to play where she might be like, be all this all
One
too,
of the warders.
yeah. And the other three won't, probably wouldn't be like will be reduced to be
You're
someone
dipping
else's
into
servant.
episode 2.
Huh?
You're dipping into episode 2. We're supposed to be on episode 1.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
Okay,
sorry.
that's so yeah, that is an interesting aspect of Lan. He's a warder, and warders are bonded to their Aes Sedai. They're bonded by magic, and That's focused on more in a later episode, so we can discuss it more there. For the channeling, like how magic actually looks. In the book, they don't have to use their hands to channel, and so that works very well when you're reading because you're getting like what the mental process is and how much effort it takes there. But showing in a visual medium, giving it a physicality does help for the visual medium. And so that was an interesting change. Some people like it, some people don't. The actual way it was done. What do you think visually?
I felt like he had an honor and duty to protect his mistress and his lady. So he is like he is the sword, he is her sword and shield, so he'll try to protect and defend her in any way. So I feel like that was really easily betrayed because like he whilst he was trying to channel her power, he's defeating the enemies on the side, and then you watch her give off a big blast of energy, and then everything is calming down. His first response is to protect her body, to be able to
Hmm.
make sure that no matter what happens to him, she must survive. And I felt like that is just like a note, like a soldier, or like a man of honor, and like his sworn duty is to make sure that she is guarded and protected. And I feel like he portrayed a perfect like
Yeah.
character as a sword and a shield.
Okay. So another question about the channeling then. Do you know why the men can't channel? Does the show convey the reason for that?
I think they did a little bit at the beginning because like they shown like the you see the women's chasing after guy, and the guy is
And
starting to
he's
become,
delusional and going insane,
yeah.
yes.
So like
But why
it's
is he?
um
Does the show tell you why?
no. I'm thinking about like
The
I
big
guess we could,
problems I do have
yeah.
with this show does not explain these things. First of, do you want me to tell you?
I do know how because I watched the episode shorts at the end where they kind of give
Okay,
like
tell me your
short.
understanding.
Basically, the uh the dark one, the dark one placed a curse on the men, one of the kings, and the king went off and started killing, became mad and started killing everyone he loved, and then they become mad with dark power, so they lost all control of it. And that's before the entire world becomes dark. That's the beginning of
Um,
how.
Not really.
Really? Okay. I
Yeah, the
think I'm
show
mixing
does
up
not
stuff.
communicate this well, and I did watch that short before we started talking, and the short does not communicate it well either.
Okay.
There, the one power is split into two halves. There's Sidene for men and Sidar for women, but it's the same power, just different sources for male and female. In And again, this is not conveyed. It says that arrogant men tried to chain the Dark One. No, there was a war with the Dark One, and a man, Luther and Telamon, who was known as the Dragon, he led the forces that pushed the Dark One back into his prison and sealed it. The, this was like a last-ditch effort to end the war, and the women did not help him. So when the men were sealing off the prison, the Dark One lashed out one final time and tainted Sidene, the male half of the One Power. And from there, any man who can channel, they would have to touch that corruption to touch the power, and they can't just not touch the power. So it drove them insane. It was, and that led to the breaking of the world with all of these male channelers going insane. And back then, channelers were extremely powerful. The world broke, continents shifted, oceans were in different locations now. And so 3,000 years later is where we are now when our story starts.
Okay. Wow.
I don't like the show saying it was the arrogance of men that caused the breaking of the world. It was a last ditch effort to end a war with the literal devil of this world. And the devil lashed out and did this.
Wow. Okay. So then that also, well, I think that also plays the part on. Hold on. Let me gather my thoughts
You know,
for a second.
okay, you gather I'm going to talk a little bit more.
Okay.
The show does not specify that the magic is segmented into male and female. It never says that at any point. That red sister at the beginning just says when men touch it, they make it filthy. And from a red sister, they might have that perspective because the reds do hate men. So that might be her saying what she believes. But it's never contradicted at any point. It's never corrected saying, no, the dark one did this. The men are victims, really. They don't choose to channel. They're born able to, and then it drives them insane. And there is a purpose to the reds because an insane channeler is extremely dangerous. They do have to be hunted and gentle. There's nothing else you can do with them. But treating them like they are creatures of evil, I don't like it.
Okay, wow. Okay, so my original thoughts before was how should I say? So I my thoughts before is like, oh, they were like I felt that like during like the scene where he was like telling that he has gone mad with dark power, I felt like, oh, something must have happened in a great war. And then once I saw like the sword, I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. But I felt like because of history, because like because history can be alternate, like because of how history has written it and how people are told stories, they pretty much retold the story in their type of their own version. So the red sisters believe like, oh, men is corrupted and stuff like that, and they kind of like pledge that on to the new sisters that arrives, like, oh, you guys don't deserve the powers because of the sins that you did in the past, which but they didn't committed the sin. They like, history changed itself depending on who's writing the story.
I like that perspective, and I'd like to discuss it more when we get to the end of the season.
Okay.
Because, yes, you are right. Perspective, who's telling the story, and how people take it and how it evolves over time, that can alter how it is. And again, I am going with a book bias. So if the show establishes its own history, and in some places it does, but again, when we get to that episode, we'll discuss.
It also
But so
wants me to figure out the guys that dress in white. Like they're killing off the sisters one by
the
one, and
white
it's yeah,
religious fanatics,
yeah. Like what's their like they're killing off the sisters, and maybe it's like I thought it's maybe they have a grudge against them because about their
no, no,
power.
no,
Okay.
no, they don't. They are religious fanatics who think anything not them is evil. That's pretty much what it is. In the book, they want to like arrest Rand because he splashed mud on their cloaks. So anything that makes them mad, they say that's a dark friend, kill it. That's kind of, that
Ah, okay.
it's the kind of people group that makes you infuriated just trying to formulate a sentence about them.
Yeah. Okay, I get you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, you know the witch hunts from history
yes, yes.
where those kind of crazy fanatics who would kill anyone who was the slightest bit different or the slightest bit didn't show deference to them.
Or talk back to them or go against
Anything.
their
Yeah.
code of rules and laws.
Yeah. The core of that organization is supposed to be that they fight for the light and fight the dark wherever they find it. But that is warped and twisted into these fanatics now who see the dark in anything. We're going
So
to have a discussion about them in another
yeah,
later
I'm just
episode
like
as well. They show up again. They show up again. Don't worry. Okay, we're coming up on an hour now.
okay. Like let's finish with the character. What is your thoughts on
Which character?
um Len?
I like Lan. I like him in the book. I like him in the show. I don't really have any extreme thoughts on him at the moment.
Hmm.
There is an aspect of him that will come up later, and we can discuss when we get to that episode.
Okay. So okay, your thoughts between the books and the first two episodes so
The
far.
book was better.
The book was better. Um
Okay, I like the book. I have read because I've read the whole book, and it got me hooked enough to say I am most definitely going to read a 14 book series, possibly back to back, as soon as I can get the rest of the books. So that's an accomplishment right there when it hooks you like that.
Okay. So as someone has, I haven't actually looked into it. So is the entire first season, is it just
Of mixed feelings.
okay, the entire first season, is it just
It's
like book one, or is it just plays like how
book
many
one.
books? Okay, so just finish watching the entire season first and then go straight into reading the book as an opinion.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So, okay. Okay, what other thoughts? Comparison from the book and and season 1?
Okay. Here's something. The quote unquote aging up of the characters, or changing them culturally, I guess. They're 20 in the books and they're 20 in the show, but their behavior is very different. In the books, they're very sheltered, naive, from a very conservative small town where a gleeman and some strangers showing up in town was extremely exciting for them. That was their idea of excitement. So when they are forced to leave their little town, you see the wide-eyed wonder as they are finally, they have never left the two rivers. They've never gone further than the next town over. And so when they get to a
Oh.
big, when they get to a city, when they get to Tarvalin, they are continually in awe of everything. But in the TV show now, they're still the same age, 20, but they act like an older 20 rather than this sheltered village 20. Because, well, Egwene and Perrin is already married. Egwene and Rand are sleeping together and in a relationship. They are sort of promised to be married, like it's assumed that they're going to get married in the books, but they're not in a relationship like that, like a mature, emotionally developed and sexually developed relationship. They seem very young. And so they do that for a show so that they can have more grown-up things in there. But what that loses is the coming of age aspect because they don't seem as young, so we don't see them grow up throughout the course of it. And then also losing that young sheltered naivety, we also lose a lot of the excuses for some stupid decisions that they made. If they're not those young sheltered inexperienced children, then there's not really much excuse for when they do something stupid or childish. And then there's also the element of contrast from this conservative little isolated area that they live in, going into these big cities with way different customs that throw them off so much, it's hilarious. If they already have the same kind of customs, relationship customs, marriage customs, all of that, then where's the culture shock going to come from?
Wow. Okay. I see. That's a lot of like, okay, so there is a whole bunch of differences between them. Wow.
Mhm. Yeah, we can, like I said, I would love to have a book TV show comparison when you've read the book.
Okay.
But we are now going over an hour. Do you want to give final thoughts?
Overall, I'm actually excited for like the episodes. Like honestly, so far, my opinion is because they were producing the show during a pandemic, I kind of like put that
You
in.
give them leeway.
I
You
give
give
them
them leeway
leeway,
because they deal with a lot.
like again,
Yeah, I get
location and
that.
stuff like that, and I felt like a lot of the stuff was shutting downs and borders and stuff like that. So it's like okay, I can't be too critical. Overall, I felt like they did a good job. You could tell as someone who is just entering as into the world of Wheel of Time, you could tell like they were they messed up the pacing in the first two, like the first episodes, like oh that kind of ended too quick, like oh I wish they gave more time to that. But but I say it was really interesting, and I went straight from episode 1 to episode 2 because I was like confused, like huh, they're just leaving, so I wanted to know what happens next. But you could tell that the pacing was off multiple times,
Hmm.
but overall I think it was very interesting. I do want to I can't, like, all the characters are very well written. I felt like you could like every character there is something that you want to learn about them. I do want to learn more about I think Len, Moraine, and I do want to know more about Len and Moraine more. I think I have enough for the other people and Naive. Yes, Naive is the other character that I do want to learn more because you could see honestly the first two episodes made me felt like that C was just a side character and then C will appear until later on to the series, but I honestly thought that C was like dead or injured after how the first episode was ended. And then when gone back to like the Amazon Prime page, like, oh, she's considered a main character in the series. Like, okay, so she's not
And
dead.
that got you curious.
Yeah, yeah, that got me
Okay.
curious.
Oh my, something just came up. I can't believe I forgot this before. In the book, it's only the three boys who are possibly the dragon because they know the dragon reborn is going to be born male. First of
Oh,
all, because part of the prophecy that a boy was born on this day, and second of all, because he was a man in his past life. That's how it works in this world. And so for that, they know that the three boys are the potential dragons. They were all born around the same time within weeks of each other. And Maureen can tell that there's something significant about them. But Egwene, she is actually 2 years younger. And they know
oh,
that the Dragon Reborn can't be female. And by making it man or woman in the show, it kind of takes out some of the inherent tension because a male channeler, first of all, is already going to be dangerous. They will go mad and eventually be a danger to those around them. And also, the dragon reborn is inherently dangerous because this is the guy who went crazy and broke the world before, and they're afraid of that happening again. So, by making it, if the dragon reborn can be female, half the tension is gone because then you just have a very strong female channeler without any of the inherent risk or danger.
I honestly forgot about that. Like that one part, like it only could be a boy. I honestly thought okay, I thought about the whole it could either be both of them, like the girl or the boy, so they had to test all four all
Yeah,
four
and
people.
I think that really
Two,
takes
three,
away
four.
from Egwene's character actually, because in the book, Maureen is first of all, she does not take them away in front of the entire town. The town would have fought her to not let her take their children away. They sneak out after she convinces the boys, the Trollocs were after you, we need to go or your village will be destroyed. Again, in the show, she doesn't have any proof that the Trollocs were after them. Besides the point, they sneak out, and Egwene, she's smart. She notices that the boys are up to something when they're gathering supplies to get out. She's smart. She picks up on that. She's observant.
Oh
And then
wow.
she chooses of her own volition to say, I am coming with you. I'm getting out of this little town and going on an adventure. You cannot leave me behind. You can try. I'll follow you anyway. She is so fiercely independent and driven, and then by just making her, oh, she's another potential dragon, it actually takes away so much of her agency. She didn't make this
Okay,
choice.
yeah, that's a key factor. I honestly thought that she was a potential of another dragon. I honestly thought I forgot that small detail because they made it seem that all four of them had the potentials to be dragon.
Yeah, well, in the show, they say that it can be either male or female, but that inherently takes away the inherent threat of even finding the dragon.
Wow.
And again, Egwene's character kind of cut off at the knees there because she's not making decisions on her own. She's being pushed rather than saying, I'm coming, you can't stop me. Okay, so let me get my final thoughts because we
Okay.
are over the hour now. I agree with you about the pacing issues that are shown. The beginning, after that opening scene, was a bit slow for me. And then that ending, the battle, the battle was amazing. But then the ending was rushed. It felt like it should have been a cliffhanger and picking up in the next episode with the recovery. And the extra episodes that the showrunner wanted, you can feel where they were missed in terms of character development. And we will talk about that in later episodes as well, as I've already said many times. And but overall, though, it was a good start to a series because it introduces the characters fairly well. Like independent of the book, it introduces who the show characters are and what each of their home lives is like. We don't actually see much of their home lives in the book before they have to go. So yeah, good characterization in the first episode, good setup where they're in danger, there's urgency. Not so well execution for uh, that follow up to the inciting incident.
Agreed.
So yeah, a bit mixed feelings for me. Mixed feelings, but positive mostly for this first episode. So I think that's it for episode 1.
Okay, yeah, this is I can't wait to watch episode 3. I honestly my thoughts are like jumbled because you gave me some key information because like I was like, huh, that I feel like I need to go back and rewatch them and just like look. I probably am going to go back and rewatch them. It's been 2 days, and I felt like again the pacing was off by a little bit, but I do feel like the opening was really strong. Just pacing wise, it's just like,
Okay,
why?
so let's pick that up in episode 2.
Yes.
We need a proper outro for this podcast, but we'll work on that.
Okay.
Good day.
Good day.